Hello and welcome to the Bridge of Love. My name is Erin Cameron. I created this podcast to share all the gifts, magic, and wisdom from my life as a special needs mom. Through love, we are able to bridge the seen and the unseen, the physical and the non-physical, expanding into a higher perspective on this experience we call life. The fun part about having my own show is that I get to have on whoever I want. It's a wonderful opportunity to share with you people that I have found interesting, important, or helpful in my own journey. And today's shining example of all of those things is John Rusciano. John is a dear friend who I met almost a year ago as a part of the Sarah Landon community, where I learned to channel. Sarah's community has drawn to it so many powerfully intuitive and connected people, and John is one of my favorites. He is a hypnotherapist, teacher, lecturer, life mastery coach, quantum light guide healing facilitator, and pioneer and explorer of consciousness and energy. He leads his own Frequency Masters Academy, which represents the convergence of science and spirituality, blending the timeless teachings of ancient mastery schools led by renowned masters from our past with modern scientific insights into the quantum nature of reality. For those eager to embrace a life filled with joy and excitement, realize your grandest dreams, and achieve your utmost potential, Frequency Masters Academy is the ideal place. It's founded on the belief that life should be thrilling and lived on your own terms. And I have just another little bit from your website, John, that I found really beautiful. At Frequency Masters Academy, we honor the unconstrained magnitude of the human spirit. Our inspiration arises from the sacred whispers of ancient wisdom and the clarion call of contemporary science, crafting an extraordinary bridge that seamlessly spans the discernible and the obscure, the mundane and the miraculous. In this nurturing environment, the polarities of science and spirituality dissolve, merging into an inseparable duet, orchestrating an awe-inspiring exploration of the quantum fabric of our shared reality. And that to me is just a beautiful example of John's way with words. And you might find even more wisdom as you watch this episode a second or third time. And that's definitely been my experience with our coaching sessions together. I definitely would go back a few times to really absorb everything. I have learned so much from John, from his decades of experience and his loving presence. His coaching sessions in particular were a huge source of wisdom and guidance for me this year, especially as I ventured out into the unknown to create this podcast. And it's my joy today to have him on my show. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Erin, for the beautiful, warm introduction. You are amazing, my friend. I love you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yay! I love you too. I'm excited. I'd love to start with anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself and your own story, including what events in your life or an event or events in your life led you to exploring consciousness and energy.
Well, that's a big one. We could probably fill a whole podcast just with that alone. But I could touch on a few things that were very significant in my life that really started steering me in that direction. And I would have to say, first and foremost, was my earliest childhood memory. And that thought was, what am I doing here? And it was a thought of great confusion because I felt like I was dropped here from somewhere else. I felt very different. I realized I was different. I was aware that I had telepathic abilities as a child. I felt everything from everyone. And it was a little confusing, or I should say it was very confusing for me. This is something I had to sort out for myself. I didn't have anyone to guide me. So this is something I had to guide myself with in my life. And I knew that I came to help, but I didn't know what that looked like. This was my first memories as a child. And then as I moved forward to about 11, 12 years old, my grandfather, who was an amazing individual, he was what I would say is a perfect example of unconditional love incarnate. He was so loved by those that he touched. He had such a love for animals. The animals would get excited when he was around. He always carried treats with him for the animals. And he had a very special relationship with them and those that he touched. But he came down with lung cancer. And, I wasn't really aware of how serious it was. It was something that my parents kept from my younger brother and I. And one early morning while I was sleeping, my grandfather came to me. And the first thing that he wanted to tell me is how much he loved me. The second thing that he said to me is that he was really excited about where he was going and the people he was going to be with. And the third thing that he said to me, he says, John, he says, not to worry, we're going to be together again soon. And he departed. But this wasn't just a dream. It's very difficult to put into words the experience that was created. That vision or dream, whatever you like to call it, was so vivid that it was more vivid than this reality that you're observing around you. This reality is what feels not real. That interaction I had with my grandfather, the colors, the sensations, everything was so heightened and vivid.
Wow.
The alarm clock went off and I awoke to go to school. I never said a word to anyone. My brother and I went off to school, had a normal day. And as we returned home after only being home for a few minutes, the extended family came through the door and not a dry eye. And I realized in that moment my grandfather had passed. And he literally had passed within hours of having that vision. But that was his way of, letting me know that he would always be with me. We'd be together again. And death is an illusion. That became really a springboard for me, asking really big questions, 11, 12-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we here? Where did we
And
come
for
from?
that as your first memory, it blows me away to have
Yeah,
such an early memory of such a big question.
it's so true, Erin, because when I look back as the adult, looking back, thinking of myself as that small child, from the adult perspective, it seems really odd that a young child would even be asking the kind of questions that I was asking when I was little, like, where did I come from? Why am I here? And I felt like I was from the stars. And that was my favorite time, was nighttime. And as a child, I used to like to go up and stare into the stars and ponder about life out there. And I had this really deep fascination with space and the stars. And
That makes
when I
sense.
was a child, things were a lot clearer, so you could see so much more at night. And it was my favorite time. So this launched me. And then in my 20s, I had some experiences that I knew with an absolute doubt, no doubt whatsoever, that I was actually creating my reality. And I had asked for a specific type of work that I wanted to go into. I thought I was going to have to go back to school to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But what ended up happening is through a bunch of synchronistic events, I ended up in a place and an individual walked up to me where I had started this new job and asked me if I thought about maybe, going into that kind of work if I was interested. And I got the job and they paid for all my schooling and I was able to do it on the job. And so I didn't have to go back to college. It was like everything was handed to me on a silver platter. So I started asking, how could this even be possible? How did this happen? And I knew the underlying answers to it, but I didn't understand the physics of it. And that started to come later after I had a spiritual awakening experience later in my life and turned
We're
the
very
whole course.
similar in that way, just wanting that understanding.
So there's so much. I mean, there's so many areas that I can really go into, but
Right. Those are amazing stories, and I think that yeah, it paints a really good picture of from such a young age you were being called to your purpose. That's what that sort of what came to me when you know, in those very early years to ask such a big question. To start asking those questions then tells me that that's what you're here for, is to answer them. Uh,
and share this knowledge, this wisdom, this information. And it's been given to me, by the Creator. We're all given gifts by the Creator, and there are no accidents. And my love, my joy, my passion is to share with others of who they really are, the divine spark, the divine love, that divine frequency that resides within each and every one of us, right? And how to bring that spark out, how to follow one's passion, how to navigate one's life with confidence, knowing that you're supported every step of the way, because we are.
it's really beautiful. And that makes sense why you have so much fun doing it if this all started so young. And I think we all probably started on a certain path younger than we think, but that part that blows me away. And with your grandfather as well. Um, Amazing to have that connection with, someone in your life that you otherwise might have had to go through a longer period wondering where he went, right? And then
I still feel
that
him
you,
around. He's around all the time. And
so
that's the beautiful thing for, anyone that has lost or feel like they've lost someone. They're never lost. They're actually here in the same space, but just in a different frequency. They are around us. And if you just happen in any moment, all of a sudden you start thinking of them, it's because they are there with you. They are there supporting you. And they can do so much more for you from the other side than they
that's
could if they were here in physical form.
that's a that's almost to the word what my sister Emily has said when I tune into her. That that's her role in my life. Uh, that she can be more helpful from there. And, when I first got that message, it makes sense. It feels right, even if it doesn't. If our humans want to go, well, why aren't you here? But it really helps. It just, yeah, it makes all of that make more sense. It's really beautiful.
Think
I
of it
asked,
at, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I asked her one time uh, what she was to me, just kind of just asking to myself to her, and not a 2 seconds later, I look over and there's this red rose. Like I'm on a walk and there's a rose poking through the fence, and I'm like, okay, you're red roses, all right. Um, and I immediately, like, after I got back from that walk, I called my mom, and I had remembered someone wrote a poem. Uh, so just for anyone who doesn't know, she passed away when we were 2 months old. We're twins. I called my mom and I'm like, didn't someone that write a poem for you about us, about me and Emily? And she's like, yeah. So she found it, and the beginning of it starts, two roses bloomed together for a while. And I had already told her about the rose being the thing that was Emily's answer. Like, this is me, if you see that, I'm, that's what I am to you. I love that you can communicate in whatever way you find works. They're always there.
Oh,
um,
absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, they could do so much more for you from the other side. because we're a free will planet. And another way to look at that is non-interference. So a lot of people will often ask, I get asked this question a lot about different star civilizations. Well, how come they just don't come and land their ships or do these things and help us fix things? Well, they can't really do that. We're the boots on the ground. Now we can ask for assistance and they can help us from the other side to, in a sense, set up meeting places, arrangements for certain people to bump into each other, for things to happen this way, right? And so when we have loved ones that have passed over, especially when we're open and we communicate with them and say, hey, can you help me with this? This is what I'm working on. I'm looking for this job. I can really use some extra abundance in my life,
Yeah.
for this
And
or that.
that's what I found too. It's in the asking. You do have to ask, because they need our permission, and they're giving us that respect and that power, and that, yeah.
And we incarnate usually over and over and over in our family line, and we change roles and so forth. And so there's a lot of vested interest here, because what we're really doing is helping each other to really get in touch with deeper levels of our soul, of who and what we are. And so we're, in a sense, bootstrapping ourselves up the system together.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like, if you are more open, or once you do awaken or open more to the unseen, they find you. My In a previous episode, I went over how I saw Emily, my sister Emily. I came out of my body after a yoga session, and felt her there, and knew she was there, and had a little convo with her. But after that, I remember a period of time where my grandfather, who actually passed when I was my dad's dad, when I was 14, and but he came to me in dreams after that point with Emily, and I think because I was more open, and a series of dreams for a good while there, and it was always that in the dream he was like in our normal family, whatever we were doing for the day. Like in the dream, we were doing some normal family function, and we're all sitting around. And it might have been a past experience that I held, or whatever it may, because I was a little bit older at this point, maybe not living at home. But I would have these dreams like he was still in my life. And I finally was like, okay, this is starting to freak me out. Like, you can move on. And he did. But in that,
Yeah.
I realized he was just trying to show me through my dreams that he's always there with all of us. And I must have had 15 dreams with him in them. And I'm like, what are you doing here? You're not alive. Like, that was my
But
conversation with him.
but they are.
But they're totally here.
They are. And that's the illusion.
Yeah. So in the dream, it was crystal clear. He was just sitting there as him. And I was like, I kept being so confused and like fighting back in the dream. Like, what are you doing here?
We're dreaming right now.
There you go. So that's kind of what I'd love to get into. What I've gotten so much from you is creating my own reality. And can you go into a little bit of, your understanding of how we do that? Is that too broad of a
Well, I mean,
question?
we could drill down a little bit on it. I could start off. What I would say is, when I look at really the underlying mechanics of reality, I look at existence itself. And existence has one quality, and that's to exist. And one eternal now spirit that has always existed. It is no thing. So think about that. It is no thing. It's just pure isness, pure awareness. This is what some people refer to as God, or a prime creator, the void. What they're talking about is
Yeah.
yes, there are many names, many different traditions, but we're really talking about the same thing. is just pure beingness. Existence has always existed. It has never not existed. But within existence itself, all infinite potentials exist within it. So when the one eternal now spirit within existence itself saw its own reflection, the one became two, the mirror became all that is. And it created fractal expressions within itself, of itself, so that it could know itself. Because the one existence, or the one spirit in existence, has no experience of itself. It just is. And through its reflection, it's able to experience all that it is and all the infinite potentials that it is through the fractal expressions, reflections of itself within itself. And that's who and what we all are. We are all fractal expressions, facets of the one infinite crystal, experiencing ourselves. So the one makes up the all, and the all make up the one. And so every interaction that we're having with another is really dependent on the level of consciousness you're looking at it. We're just interacting with ourselves, or another aspect of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is the highest perspective, right?
Yes.
So many of the messages that I receive from Haddon have those similar concepts in them, like that everything is within you, everything's inside of you. There's nothing out there. Our outer reality is just reflecting everything that's inside. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten that type of message from her. And then, so when I met you and we have had multiple conversations, I see all of this as, versions of truth. And it's so fun to explore it and talk about it and kind of wrap your brain around it every once in a while. And yeah, it does. It is something that I've come to like understand a little better, that everything can be inside of us. It feels so true when I'm meditating or getting a message from Haddon. It's just like, yeah, this feels exactly like what's happening right now. It just feels right.
She's absolutely right. Everything is within. And growing up as a child, my mother was Catholic, and so I ended up going to a Catholic school. And they taught about the omnipresence of God. God is everywhere, knows everything that you're doing. I was like, well, how could God be everywhere? I remember asking myself this as a kid. But everything is within consciousness. But the thing is all the reflective experience is holographic in nature. It's just energy interacting with itself and exchanging information. Without the exchange of information, the hologram cannot be created. So if you look at really the principles of a hologram, we'll just use as an example. Imagine that you had like a dinner plate, for instance, but that was a holographic plate. And on that plate, you had an image, say, of a beautiful sunflower or a dolphin, right? And
Sunflower is Haddon's flower, by the way, so no
well,
accident.
there you go, right? There are no accidents, absolutely. You accidentally drop the plate shatters into hundreds of pieces. Regardless of how small the piece is, if you were to pick it up and you were to examine it, all the information that was contained in the original, contained within the whole, is in every single piece. So you might need a pair of tweezers to pick up a little piece of that plate, but regardless of how small it is, it contains all the information of the whole. Now you might need a very powerful, microscope to be able to see the details, but it will all be there. And so on a bigger picture, when we think about this, right, scientists will say, okay, you're mostly made up of space. 99.9999999% space within the atoms that make you up. Very little matter that makes you up. So what's it within that space? The quantum field. Okay, so what is the quantum field?
Another
All
one.
realities, all dimensions, all of everything that exists is all rolled up in the quantum field. The quantum field is the no thingness, but it is the infinite potentials from which we all create. So we're all immersed in the quantum field. It's all around us right now, and it's also within us. So all these,
The quantum field is, does this make sense? Like, it is the formless that takes form. And
yes,
so it's kind of this, that's how I visualize it. That, quantum meaning the smallest of particles. Um, and those come together with the communication of energy,
mm-hmm.
like you're talking about, into form. Um, and what I find fascinating is that we're doing that. Whether we
Absolutely.
do it or not, whether we're aware of it or not,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah,
I just want to give that visual of the quantum field, because that one took me a while to. I heard the words and read them, and um, but yeah, just that, like you said, the infinite potentials. So it's formless. It has infinite potentials within it, and those can become anything. Those particles are hanging
and
out, waiting for instructions.
exactly, and it's energy. Excuse me. It's energy in a neutral state. It's energy that's in a neutral
Yeah,
state that is waiting for you as the awareness, as the consciousness that you are, to give it instructions of what it is that you wish to create from the infinite potentials. So you, as the creator, are infusing your own energy within the quantum field with, I just refer to them as data sets. You can say or give it any name that you want, but just think of every thought, every image, every feeling, every emotion has data in it. It has information that you infused from your awareness, from your consciousness. And you're infusing that information into the energy. The energy is the communication. And that energy is then acting upon the infinite potentials within the quantum field through resonant match, creating light and particles, gravity, which is pulling these things into your reality, holding these things into your reality, into physical manifestation.
and that's the magic. What I refer to as magic. Yeah.
Yes, it is magic. But just to make it really simple, right? I can look at all these things that I've learned over the years, and my guides have taught me, and other mentors have taught me along my way. I've had many, many teachers. But one of the things I learned early on, it all comes down to unconditional love for oneself.
Yeah.
And to love yourself unconditionally, never deny love for yourself for any reason, and share that love with others. Love others as you're loving yourself. This is what led to a lot of my experiences in my life. For me personally,
Mm-hmm.
the mechanics of how this stuff works came later, but it was through the unconditional love. And I want to say something about your daughter, because your daughter is very, very special. And she's a very highly advanced soul. And many children that come in this way, they come in this way for a specific reason. And it's what I said earlier, is that we are a free will planet. So in other words, if we're not incarnated within the earth experience, we can't really be mucking around with things and changing things. In other words, we have to be part of the collective agreement here on earth So we have to be the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Your daughter has come in. Your daughter came in highly focused, highly focused. And in that highly focused state, being here on earth, she's able to contribute in a very positive way to changing the consciousness on this planet, changing, infusing that energy that she's holding into these new higher timelines, these ascension timelines that a lot of people are talking about. And so she's being of great service. And through you channeling her, she's also sharing this wisdom also in another way, which is also helping to bring these gifts. So I believe it was the 4-minute mile. I was talking about this when somebody broke the 4-minute mile, right? They thought that wasn't possible, but then when it was broken, then other people started breaking it as well. It's the same thing because we're all connected collectively through the morphogenic field. It's the energetic matrix that connects us all together. So the more love, the more experience that we put into the field, when somebody else may be having a challenge with that same thing, they can draw upon your experience or another's experience, how they were able to solve that, and all of a sudden feel hope and feel that feeling within themselves, just knowing that everything's going to be okay. But they don't know where it necessarily came from. It could have came from you. And this is something that your daughter's
It could
doing.
be across the world, right?
Yeah.
In a similar experience. And then because I've been through it and brought, Haddon's light and my light into it, into whatever that particular experience is, they can go through it, even if I don't know them, and maybe feel like this isn't such a bad deal. This is everything's gonna be okay, or whatever that feeling is. Yeah, I love that, the collective, how we're connected. I didn't have to create the podcast necessarily, right? Just have to go through my life, and yeah, that's amazing.
And exactly. And so we can have a whole different point of view of what, we think maybe Haddon's experience is. But when you check in with her, what does she
Yeah.
say to you?
So what I get, in combination with the messages that I receive from her, which end up kind of just transferring a knowing overall over time, um, and then also kind of just as I observe her with this inner knowing, and then I'm in the real life with her, if that makes sense, right? I have both higher connection, channeled messages, knowledge, wisdom. She just dumps all of that. I get a feel for it, and it becomes sort of this knowing and this truth. But I also, just in seeing her and knowing her throughout her whole life, what I get is she's holding something that is really all of our own. It's something that we can all do or be. She is sort of our all of our default, as pure love. So that's why she feels so good to me, or her family, or caregivers, or anyone who's highly connected, or even teachers, or anyone who chooses to connect with her. Even people, I have neighbors that still walk up my hill and check on her because they've met her in person, and they want to know how's Haddon, and they have a vested interest because they connected with her, and it's really beautiful. And from all of that, I think she's really showing us the way, in a sense, but she's showing us who we really are, and she's being that thing so strongly that it helps us kind of tune in to it. I think that's what I get, is I believe we all have that capacity. She's just set up in a way, and she came here in a way that she is able to highly focus her energy because she's not distracted doing other things. Um, and I got one time that she doesn't feel like anything's wrong with her, almost like she doesn't feel sick. She doesn't feel, almost to the point, this is what she said, almost to the point where she doesn't even know what it is. Like, that's how it came out of my mouth or through my brain. That she wouldn't even know what being sick is, or being disabled is. So it's really interesting to get messages from her because we all have our perception of her experience, right? We see a kid in the wheelchair and we're like, oh, wouldn't I wish she could run. I wish she could, that's a bummer or whatever, right? Like our own perception of, and we immediately see the things she can't do. But what she's really doing is bringing all of her energy. She's bringing consciousness, and that does come through really strongly in the messages too. It's all one. It's one big Haddon ball of love and light. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I would say that's 100% correct. You know, and highly focused. If I were to summarize it up, she's highly focused and she's highly in tune, communing with her higher self, the non-physical portion of her consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And because she has that divine union relationship, because there are no distractions for her. And I would have to say that within her consciousness, she knows that this is just a blip in what we refer to as time, a mere blink of the eye. But in that mere blink of an eye, it's having a huge impact on the collective consciousness that she's holding, the vibration that she's holding. Because the vibration that she's holding, as well as others like her that have come to anchor that light in the way that she has chosen, is a beacon for others to latch onto that, to begin to connect with those higher aspects of their own consciousness, with their own higher self. And this is what's happening right now on the planet. Anyway.
Yeah, like I was going to say, I don't think there's any mistake in the timing of how many children are coming with, special conditions or special needs or limitations as we might see them as limited. There can't be an accident there. There are no accidents. I've learned that. The timing is, I think it is a time where it feels like people are more ready, and she to me she feels more seen to me than when she was younger, and yeah, and there just seems to be more kids like her that are a bigger part of our awareness.
She's a trainer. She's a trainer. I know you, Erin, right? And what has your daughter done for you in terms of opening your own consciousness up and trusting your own feelings and trusting your imagination? Our imagination is the conduit to our higher mind. That's how we communicate with our higher mind, is through that connection.
Yeah. What's interesting? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I've seen that within you, right? So, and she's doing this to other people around because they're connecting to her that way. They're learning to sense into the vibration and interpret that vibration into messages, because once again, that energy, that vibration is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And in that communication, by having that level of sensitivity, by being able to tune in, then we start becoming more telepathic, less need for verbal communication. And so that's what I meant when I said trainer. She's, in a sense, acting as a trainer for those to allow them more sensitivity. When we want to increase power to something, what we're really saying, what we want to do is we want to make that device or whatever it is more sensitive. And that includes ourselves, more sensitive to feel into everything that we already are.
And that is the key. Once I became more sensitive, I realized I'd been this my entire life. It's always been in there. It's something that you come into. And then you can look back and say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I was doing this something similar as a kid, or, you know, some of that stuff I think we kind of switch off through, um, teenage or adult, younger adult years, maybe.
We're taught to turn it off. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I've heard, growing up, grow up. It's just your imagination, you know, act like an adult. And really, the children are the ones that are more tuned in to the higher level consciousness, but they're trained
Yeah.
out of it.
Thing. Mm-hmm.
And now it's really about unlearning what we've been taught and relearning.
Yeah.
And it's all about the sensitivity. It's all about dropping into the heart. It's all about letting go of things that no longer serve us and opening the heart. For those who may not be familiar with the Heart Math Institute, that's a fabulous place that's doing amazing research on heart intelligence, heart coherence. And one of the fascinating things about the heart is the heart operates outside of duality. The mind operates in duality. So whatever you create, it creates a opposite. You always get two sides of the coin. Within the heart operates outside of duality and operates in 0 point, or within the stillness, within the void. So it's really your gateway. It's your creative portal. So when we learn to become more sensitive, when we learn to become more still in the mind and listen to the heart, listen to the information that's coming into the heart, then we become very powerful creators. One of the fascinating studies that Heart Math Institute did is they set up computers with what they call random event generation. And what this program did is displayed images from everything from really beautiful to horrific, every
Yeah. The whole
level of
range.
the full range. Yes. And one of the things that they found is 6 seconds before the image was actually displayed on the computer screen, the heart already knew what was going to be shown and sent signals to the brain. So the heart received the information first, sent the information to the brain, which then released the corresponding chemicals to create the sensations of the image, say a snake jumping out at the person. And so now those chemicals were sent to the brain from the heart before the image was even shown, right? To, create that sense of knee-jerk reaction of fear and jumping back. And even the scientists that were conducting the experiments didn't even know what was going to be shown. It was totally random. And so our heart is always sensing the field. And it's through
And I think that's how kids live, right?
that was
Younger
me. I was that
like
kid.
you were 100% living from your heart. And yeah, I think that's how kids, I always, as when Haddon was younger, she had such amazing friends because they saw her. I called her a friend magnet in like preschool, grade school. It was incredible. Kids wanted to be like her. They wanted a chair. They were like, "Where's my chair? This is freaking cool." They wanted to push her on the swing. They were like line up on the playground to push her on the swing like one time. A
Yeah.
whole line of kids. And this is how they were demonstrating to me that they were living from their heart. And it's almost like we just have to you know, yeah, we learned how to cover that and
Yeah.
process with our brain, and then the brain takes over. And yeah, it is an unlearning. That's amazing. You say you were that kid. I think that was fully on in you.
Oh, it was. And I have to say, it was extremely challenging as a kid. If I were to look at my life and you were to ask me what was my greatest challenge, that was it. Because I literally saw, felt, experienced everything from everyone. I was so telepathic. I saw people's gifts. I knew what their talents were. I knew what, where they weren't being honest with themselves. I mean, I was just wired on it. I could not turn it off.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't able to turn it off, but I certainly tried everything I could to turn it off because it was very painful for a long time.
Mhm.
And I think what made it that way is what people would say and what people would do often didn't line up. And someone could say all the really nice things to you, like, oh, you're beautiful. I love your makeup. But inside they're thinking, just the opposite, right? But they're,
Just say what she wants to hear, right?
yeah. And I would feel that. And I would know that that's not the truth.
Yeah.
But then there was a part of me that felt like I was being judgmental. And then I would beat myself up inside over it, right? Until I really came to terms with it. And because I didn't want to believe that a human being would do that to another. And so from that
Yeah.
child perspective, it was hard for me to understand why somebody would do that to another. And that's what I wrestled with as a kid. Like, why would someone do that? Why would somebody, say, purposely try to hurt another to get something from them? And I really grappled with that as a child. But we're in a different place now. People are really kind of waking up and stepping into, who they are and letting go of this. And it's just a human experience that we all chose to have. So I have a whole different perspective of it now.
Hmm.
But growing up as that little child, it's something that I really wrestled with a lot.
That reminds me, like your child story reminds me of sort of how I experienced being with Haddon, in the sense that, at some point you sort of just came to know yourself enough to choose that, well, people aren't really like this. They're just on their own path. So the truth of them must be good, and that's what I'm going to, you know, believe and create as my reality. And I thought this similar thing where the truth of Haddon is whatever I see it to be. And I eventually trusted that. And the struggle came all before that, where I was like, what's happening here? Why is there something wrong? But it doesn't feel wrong to me. So, like, you were like feeling their thoughts and their words didn't match. And you're like, what's happening here? And then eventually you saw the truth that you had already always known telepathically. You were, and then from that point there's clarity, and it's like, this is the world I'm going to live in.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It took me a while. It took
Well,
me
it
a
took
while.
me like 15 years.
Uh, so it was a journey. It was a process. It didn't happen overnight. Let's just say that. But
Well, especially
I
when you're
eventually got the message.
as sensitive as you were and you are, it's going to take longer because you're getting so much information that doesn't match.
That and also there was the challenge too that because I would feel what everyone else was feeling around me, that if I was having a challenge myself, it was really challenging me for me to be around other people because I would feel their stuff and then it would kind of merge. It felt like it just merged with mine. And so I would feel all their stuff within me too. And so
Yeah.
it'd be like, it felt like this big jumbled knot. And then it would like, okay, well, what is mine and what is theirs? But as I started to awaken and have different experiences, what I understood is that in a sense, we're not separate. None of us are separate. It's an illusion. We're all fractal expressions of one consciousness. And what I was doing is opening up to a level of sensitivity, realizing that I'm integrating more of myself out in an expanded way, realizing that I am all these aspects, just as everyone else is all the aspects of everything as well, from their own perspective, that no one is separate from anything.
Yeah, and I think that's why even when your energy changes, I've experienced this myself. Yes, we're trying to create our physical reality, but there are people in that reality too. And I find when my energy changed, the people in your reality can change, you know? And I think it's because we're all connected on that higher level. Even
It,
people that you've known for a really long time, and life just becomes easier and flows better with them. And um, that's an amazing example of that connection.
you're absolutely right, but if we want to take that even further, it's a little bit of a mind bender. But when you start to really tap into the understanding of this, you realize that how free that you actually are, because we never actually change the reality that we're in. Never.
That's
What we
what they
do, what we actually do is shift ourselves into another coexisting parallel reality that matches the vibration of what we changed into. So if we take that even a little further, right, that means that moment to moment to moment, you're literally not the same person, because the person you were a moment before is in another parallel reality, another plane of existence. So the person you were just a moment ago is not the same person that's sitting here right now. So this is a reality, that's a reality, that's a reality, that's a reality, and all the realities in between that. So as you shift your reality and you become a new person, then what about all the people around you? They're also not the same people. So as you change yourself and you shift into another reality, right? As you're shifting via your preferences, you start noticing those around you that are seemingly changing as well, because they're not the same people.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said is the actual structure of reality doesn't change. The only thing that actually changed was our perception of it.
Absolutely. It's one eternal now moment.
Yeah,
Existence
and
itself.
I really feel into the being in the moment thing when you're going through how we sort of recreate our reality by recreating a new us in each and every moment. That's a lot more consciously done if you're consciously in the moment yourself, right?
All your power is now, in the moment, because the now is all there is, one eternal now moment. So what we refer to as time, or this moment, this moment, this moment, is the same one eternal now moment from a different perspective, a different point of view, a different angle, different reflection of looking at something. So the only thing that we ever change is our perception, because the structure of existence never changes. Everything that it can be, will be, is, already
Source is
exists.
source. Source
It's
is
already
source.
there.
Yeah, the one is the one. Everything is everything. It
So,
already is everything that it is, right?
right, and that never changes. So what's determining what we're experiencing is what our belief is, what we're buying into, who we think we are in relation to everything else, how we're defining things from moment to moment. This is the perception, this is the angle of reflection. And we're also not moving through time space. Time space is actually moving through our consciousness. So you, as a soul itself, have never actually left home.
And I think that's why it feels so good to go into meditation, close your eyes, go inside, um, because that, in a sense, feels more true sometimes than your outside world. Because I think it actually is. And that's because you are home. You can actually go. That makes sense. Why, you know, getting messages from Haddon, channeling her, tuning into my own self, going inside, it's all there. That we
There,
would feel, it feels like home. And I think the more familiar I've become with that, wow, does my outside world look better?
there is no outside world. What we refer to
Yeah,
what we're
yeah,
referring to the outside world is the holographic reflected reality that's being reflected back off your higher mind mirror. You're reflecting back to yourself, your own
yeah.
creation
And what
within your own consciousness. This is how big you are. You're infinitely. Yeah, I mean, you're everywhere. You're the center of everything. Because if everything is in infinite, then that would also mean that you're always at the center.
and
And
that's the way it's designed. What keeps coming to me is just this image of, like you said, if Source wants to see itself in us, in everything, as a fractal of itself, yeah, there is nothing outside. That's what came to me, is just that image of that's the whole point. So it doesn't matter that it's whether it's holographic or that's what the purpose is to get that reflection.
reality is only about experience. Experience is the only thing that, from my perspective, is real. And if you think about it, consciousness is really the only thing that, I mean, if you want to look fundamentally, mechanically, that exists in and of itself, right? Reality doesn't exist in and of itself. It's projected by consciousness, so therefore it exists. But if you turn off the conscious projector, you as the awareness that are projecting it, then the reality would simply disappear. Just like if you were in a movie theater and you pulled the plug on the projector, there would be nothing on the screen, right?
Yeah.
And so that you're what we're calling our reality would just like poof, it'd just be gone. It's a dream. It's an illusion. The experiences of it is real, but
Mm-hmm.
we're the ones projecting it collectively and individually. So the only thing that is really fundamentally real that exists, period, is existence itself, awareness, consciousness. And so everything, all that experience is going on within consciousness itself, within the mind of spirit, within the mind of the creator. There's nothing outside of mind. So
Mm-hmm.
what we're calling our reality is nothing more than your soul in a state of repose, a small portion of your soul, I should say, that is literally highly focused in dreaming you, Erin, and right, and each individual soul is doing the same thing, is dreaming you or projecting you into this physical reality space-time experience where we can experience things coming one thing after another in a linear format. In other words, experience the creative process, how something comes into being. But it's
Yeah.
just a dream. It's just a dream. So what's the difference of when you're actually asleep and dreaming or when you're awake and dreaming? They're both realities are real.
It's just a different experience.
Right now you're just aware that you're actually dreaming. And so this is the magic sauce, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you know that you're dreaming and you know that you're the creator of it and you understand the underlying mechanics of how these things happen and that you're creating your reality moment to moment anyway. So you're creating it one of two ways, right? Think about it. You're either creating it consciously or you're
Right.
walking around and unconsciously creating it and wondering, like, why is this happening? And why is that happening? And I don't understand. This good thing happened and then this happened. And I have no
Right.
idea. My whole life's a roller coaster. But
That's sort of the definition of awareness
yes.
versus
Yeah.
random floating through life. Yeah. And what I find so interesting is, the communication, the energy, that it doesn't matter sort of the form of that. So you could have like a negative connotation towards something or emotion towards something like, oh, it's so hard for me to get nurses for many years. I had this rotating thing in my head that it was hard to get nurses and hard to find good qualified nurses, for
Mm-hmm.
example. And
Your wish is my command.
exactly, like it doesn't it your creation of your own reality can be a positive charge or a negative charge, but your energy is still going toward that thing. So you're focusing on the difficulty of getting nurses, and that's going to be the reflection. Um, as opposed to, I'm always supported, I have everything I need, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch of great nurses.
Yes. You are an unlimited, powerful creator. These aren't just nice words to make someone feel better. It's the truth of who and what you are. And you cannot become any more powerful than you already are. You are infinitely powerful. The question is what are you using your power to create? If we focus on lack, what we get is an abundance of lack.
The other thing that came to me is like if you focus on, something you don't like about society or the world and say, that's a lot of why I don't watch a lot of news. And I couldn't figure out why for a long time. It's because I just didn't feel like I could help change that thing. And so I was like, I'm just going to worry about my world. And now it makes sense because if I got upset about something out in the world, I would just keep seeing more of it.
Yeah.
It's like the energy, it does, source doesn't care if your energy is of a positive vibration or, like it's still telling it to focus on that thing and you'll just get more of it.
Whatever we're focusing upon with our awareness, that's where all the energy is flowing to that thing. In other words, it's like saying, this thing is more important than anything else. And we're making it stand out by focusing all our awareness upon it. And by doing that, we're putting a charge on it. We're making it stand out. We're saying, in a way, I'd like more of that, whether we want it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
It's charged.
we're putting a charge on it, an undue charge. And this is why I always say it's really important to allow everything to be fundamentally neutral. Now, I know this is holds true for everyone. Nobody likes to be told what to do. I know I don't like to be told what to do. I always hate when people, you're going to go do this or else,
Right.
And, of course, you'd want to do the opposite, right? And nobody likes to be told what to do. And so the thing is we are all free creators. And so we can simply recognize when somebody's doing something that's out of alignment with what we don't prefer. The thing is if we can just observe without putting judgment on things, oh, that's horrible, that person should be punished over there, or, that color on that car over there is really ugly, I don't like it, right? So there's all these judgments that are being made within our consciousness all day long. It's been trained, right? We've been trained to think that way.
Yeah.
But if we can let go of the judgment, when you let go of the judgment, you take the charge off those things. So it's like having a neutral field, a neutral energy field that's just sitting there in neutral.
We're the ones that define it.
Exactly. But if you allow it to be neutral, then whatever you're focusing upon, it allows that thing to come to us with ease, because we're not creating contradictory vibrations of judging things that would maybe hold a vibrational resonance that would hold that thing from coming to us. Right. So when we step into unconditional love, loving ourselves fully, loving others as thyself, letting go of the judgments, and focusing in all the beauty, all the things to be grateful for in our life, and seeing the world that way, what we're doing, because everything is now, right? What we're doing is we're putting ourselves in alignment with the highest vibrations for these things to be able to come to us, because we're matching the resonance of that vibration. So we allow that to come into our field. We allow that to be come into our experience. So if I said, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, right? I'm lowering my vibration, and then I'm saying, I want to have all this abundance of friendships and love and these kind of things. They're not in vibrational alignment with one another. And so they're in opposition. So
Yeah.
I'm holding myself from those things that I wish to experience. So level the playing field. Let everything
Yeah.
be neutral. Open up the love. You wouldn't exist if you weren't worthy, because creation doesn't make pointless mistakes. You're here because you belong. You're here because you're worthy. You're here because all that is wouldn't be all that is without you. You
That is
belong.
so. And I think that's how Haddon experiences the world. It's like, I think that's part of what she's showing me and everyone, that how to see, if we see that's through her eyes, all of that is, she has no judgment, right? She's just here to experience the fun stuff. And it's simpler than we think.
This is part of her beautiful contribution.
Yeah. Well, I think I asked you two questions. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's just, I love this stuff.
I
And
could go on. Yeah, we could go down all kinds of different routes.
we most certainly can, because there's so much happening on the planet right now with all these solar storms and things going on in consciousness, and we're in for a really big ride.
Yeah, it's a really fun time. That's why I
Oh,
hadn't do this now.
I just tell her, oh, buckle up. Might get a little bumpy, but just just focus on more joy, more love, everything that you wish to experience, and not get caught up in everything that's going on in the world. And what you were saying earlier, it's really about just holding the light, holding the love. That's the greatest service that we can be, right? Not
Yeah,
feeling
within
like we have to
ourselves.
go out. Excuse me. What was that?
Within ourselves. Yeah.
Within ourselves, but just let your light shine, and not shining because you're trying to change anyone. I would say, for those listening, you're not trying to change no one. It's not having an agenda. It's just really about you allowing your love and your light to shine out to the world, to radiate, and allowing those that wish to match that vibration to easily match that vibration, right? Without an agenda. And that's really important.
Well, thank you for bringing your unique vibration here today.
Well, thank you, Erin. I love you, my friend. And
Love you back. And where can people find more about you?
the best place would probably be my website at frequencymastersacademy.com.
Okay. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today, and whenever you tune in, for joining us. This has been so fun. And until next time, we are sending you so much love. Take
Love,
care.
love, love.
Love. Bye.